release and 10 fashion shows, including a prototype fashion show at the forum. Okay, our buyers are very highly selected at the Interweave show. It's very different as our competitive shows in China, that they are more focused on media to low brands, but we are just very high end in both overseas brands and the top Chinese brands. So here are some visitors' testimonials that you can see. The show will be 2 days at Shanghai Exhibition Center. The show space is around 12,000 square meters with more than 180 exhibitors. Okay, we cover the 3 main elements, which is laundry, activewear, and swimwear. Here are what we can offer from exhibitors' profile. It's mainly the fabric, fiber, lace, embroidery, textile designers, the trend forecasting agents, of course, OEM, ODM manufacturing, accessories, textile, machinery, technology. Okay, here are the buyers that we do highly selected with invitation only. Okay, mainly they are designers, the OEM, ODM manufacturers, and the buying office. They are all the decision makers. You can see some top high-end Chinese brands like Imer, La Perla, Waco, Gucci, Trump, and Maniform, Embryform, Victoria's Secret, Nay-White, Ubras, which is those new Chinese brands are very popular in China. Also the activewear brands like Lululemon, which are doing very well from Canada, Anita, Intersports, and Enta. Okay, also with some swimwear brands. So we pretty much focus on the first layer body fashion wear. Okay, here the list of the brand names that for your reference. And also the category of our buyers, not only just the designers, OEM, ODM, also the buying office, mainly from Hong Kong. Okay, so what we do is we do launch this year the new thing that we found out it's very popular, that is especially during COVID-19, that some of our international buyers cannot travel physically to Shanghai, that we will do the virtual business program and business matching. So for those people who come and visit our show, can they get from our show? It's not only the next 2 years, also they can see the prototype fashion show, and they will see the high-end contents from the gathering industrial conferences. We also have Interweave Awards for fabric part of the exhibitors. We pretty much focus on the sustainability, which is the PPP project really brings us the value. Okay, we call it Green Village, and also all those brands who participate at our show, we will do the brand fashion show. Here are some of the pictures that shows you what we do about the Trend Forum with the prototype fashion show. Okay, our conferences is very highly recommended in Asia, that we exploring the industry hotspots, like we invite all the decision makers from the brand side, and it's really a huge hit in our show. Okay, we invite those KOL speakers like Yosbury, the Concept Paris CEO, Mahina, who's coming from PPP Project, that talk about very hot topic of sustainability, and all those brand KOLs. Also another trend focus expert from WGSN, And then of course, the founder of NY. Okay, here are the introduction about Interweave Awards, how we do it. It's a very international intimate apparel industry with a panel and jury that we recognize those winners globally. It will be awarded at the Interweave Shanghai show, as always. And this is the sustainability project that we talk about, the Green Village, that we mainly invite 4 manufacturers from Indonesia. Then we invite Vanessa, which is one of the experts at our garment, the garment forecast. She's an expert that she collect all those wasted garments and redo it and to do a prototype fashion show. Okay, this is also very hot in China now, is how we can protect the international environment. So Interweave is working with the German Federal SEGWA to get those fundings to do it and really help and educate the market. Okay, those are the some of the content that we are doing from the brand side. Not only just invite those brands to participate at our show, we also educate the intimate apparel industry a lot, and we encourage them their own young designers, which to explore globally. If they are the winner, that they get the free stand at our Paris show at Expo. Okay, those are top 3 winners from 2019. They were actually at our Paris show in January in 2020. Okay, and we have another content is called the Essence. What's the difference between the Essence and YLA? YLA are fairly young brands that they normally enter the market in within less than 5 years, but the Essence more like the market for more than 5 years. So they are more matured and well recognized. Okay, those are the pictures that we want to share about our fashion show for the brand side. Okay, in 2019, we had the NY, and we call it It's Our Era to attracting all those KOLs, the bloggers, media, and industrial players in the media. We're open to the public. Okay, and the Interweave self-media platform that we actually invite a lot of media partners. We also work not only just in China market, also globally. Okay, here the list of the media that we work with. Actually last week. So we are looking to attract all the exhibitors and also buyers to be at Interweave. Introduced to the guests who's at this webinar is myself, Yvette, and also Hilary from PPP Project. So maybe you can talk about something about the PPP Project focus on the sustainability, because I know in Asia, this is a huge topic that everybody's talking about.
Okay. I would like to hand over to my colleague Soraya for that one, because I will focus on the presentation about the sustainability trends. So I would like to ask Soraya to get more in depth or give more in depth details about the PPP project, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Suraya. I'm working as the Joint Manager of Support Limited. We are a sustainability consultancy, and we are actually managing this project with Eurovet and the Interweave. So I'll just shortly just discuss our project. And this is actually 2-year-long project. That was the plan. It's about the circularity and the sustainability of the textile industry, where Eurovet actually in cooperating with 4 local Indonesian factories, where they are actually training them and creating awareness towards sustainability and circularity. And also, as a product of this project, we are creating a prototype from the waste material that we collected from the factories. And then Vanessa, as Divit introduced you, she and also our sustainability expert Marina, both of them, they trained the factories, and then finally they actually developed a prototype, which actually will be showcased in the next Interfailure Paris show. That was actually supposed to be happen last year, but due to COVID, we actually extended it, and now we are planning to arrange it in August show. So the plan of this, the main objective of this project was just to introduce sustainability and circularity in the local fashion industry of Indonesia, and also showcase their talent and their initiative through this project to the international market through Interfailure Shanghai and other shows. That's all. And then Hilary actually will present our core topic today, the presentation on sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya.
Hilary, up to you.
Shall I start?
Yeah, so let's welcome Hilary to make the presentation about sustainability.
Yes, so the topic of today will be the sustainability trends in the fashion industry. Just 1 second. So can you see this full screen? Okay.
Yes.
So as I said, the topic of today, the point of discussion will be sustainability trends in the fashion industry, and we have 5 main topics which I will introduce to you right now, and we'll go into more detail later on. So we will start with regenerative agriculture and what that is about and how that can help kind of prevent or slow down climate change. Then the next point will be circular economy and cradle to cradle as an example, to really give more in-depth detail of what this is about, because it's probably a topic everyone has heard already, but some might not really know what this is, and to kind of understand the meaning behind it, and also cradle to cradle and how important that is for the future of fashion, especially. This will be another topic. Then we will have bio-based synthetics, some new innovations which might be good alternatives for some factories and also designers to kind of have more ideas of what they can use for their fashion collections, instead of going with like the lower quality fabrics that are revolving in the industry right now. Then we have some supply chain laws, for example, from France, England, and also the German supply chain law that is going to be into force in a couple of years. And also the German Gruner Club, which is the green button, is a new certification for suppliers and producers in Germany, and suppliers from different countries. Then another topic will be leftover fabric donations, a very quick and short point, but that can kind of give inspiration to some brands that want to kind of do something else with their branding, and also do good for fashion students around the globe, to help them and support them with their collections, and also to prevent further waste from taking place in the industry. So as I said, we will start with regenerative agriculture. And what that is, it's different farming and grazing practices that will reverse the climate change. as it holds the promise of minimizing the damage that is caused currently by the typical agriculture production of cotton, wool, and other natural fibers. As you might know, cotton uses a lot of water, which can drain the soil from nutrients. There is nothing that really regenerates the soil. So that is what the regenerative agriculture is about, as the name already implies. You could understand it as the new kind of organic farming, but takes it a few steps further, because this is not only about not using pesticides, but also giving back to the soil and giving the nutrients back to it. So it doesn't only omit the chemicals, but also replenishes the soil and strengthens it further, and also the nature surrounding it. So it's not only the acres, the land that is used for the cultivation, but also the plants around it. It rebuilds the soil and organic matter, and also restores the degraded soil biodiversity, and that causes a carbon drawdown and improves the water cycle as well. And the techniques include cover cropping, no-till, and crop rotation. But there are also other practices, for example, composting, animal manures, managed grazing, and also integration of animals and agroforestry. They all contribute to generating and increasing the soil fertility and the health of it, increases the water percolation, water retention, and manages to have a clean and safe water runoff. And also, of course, improves the ecological health, but the health of the animals and also the human consumers through the improved micronutrients that will be available through this kind of regenerative agriculture practice. And that will also cause better dietary omega balances. So that is a very good practice that can be used for different crops, and is also good for the farmers in the end, and the human consumers and animals, of course. So what we have as an example, Veja, some of you, I hope most of you know, it's also a client of us. We are doing a PPP with them as well, and they actually use the agroforestry methods in the cultivation of organic cotton. So that combines agroforestry, regenerative agriculture with organic cotton, that is then used for the shoe canvas and the laces, as you can see on the picture in the lower right corner. Here, the picture with the farmer, you can see the different trees and shrubs that are grown around the crops. This also then leads to enhanced yields from the staple food crops, enhanced farmer livelihoods and income generation, as they can use, for example, crop rotation methods to then also plant different kind of crop foods, like maize, for example, that they can then later on sell to the market. What they did in the background, you can see the big tree, which is a neem tree that also creates a natural protection for the cotton plants, because the oil that is extracted from those trees and the neem fruits create a natural repellent against the insects that typically attack the cotton. So that is also a good thing, and also makes it organic. So there are no chemicals and pesticides used in this process. And between 2004 and 2019, more than 390 tons of organic cotton have been harvested using this agroforestry method. So you can see that it's still very efficient and a much better option than the usual cultivation of cotton. Then something else that might be interesting is then the Care What You Wear campaign. You might also already know Fashion Revolution, but the Care What You Wear campaign educates consumers about why and how to buy clothes that support organic and regenerative farming, and also the responsible practices and fair labor practices. So I also added a link in case you want to have further information on this, but due to the shortage in time, we have to kind of speed this up. But there is a link, as I said, you can get further information on that topic here. Then we will talk about circularity and also cradle to cradle. So this picture kind of already explains and shows what this is about. You can see the linear economy, what is fast fashion nowadays. So what you do is you take the raw materials, you make the product, you use the product, let's say a simple t-shirt made from cotton, then you don't after a while want to wear it anymore. You don't really want to fix it. There's holes in it. You think, okay, what should I do with it? I just throw it away. That's the easiest option, less time consuming, but this is not very efficient and also not very good for the environment. Then we have the recycling economy, where you take the raw materials, you make the t-shirt, you use it, and then you recycle it by breaking down the cotton and making a new t-shirt from it. And after some time, once it's not very efficient anymore to recycle the t-shirt any further, or the new garment that is produced from that, you put it into the waste. But circular economy is also a regenerative system where garments are tried to be circulating as long as their maximum value is retained, and then return safely to the biosphere where they are coming from and where they will be used as compost, for example. So you can see that that cycle is a bit more, bigger and takes a lot of more steps than just the linear economy, where you just throw it into the waste. Here in the circular economy, the products are not thrown away, but are put into the soil where they come from. And the products are designed and developed with the next use in mind. So a good example for circular economy in the fashion industry is the certification called Cradle to Cradle. But first, we also have the 2020 Circular Fashion System Commitment. So we have the different brands that are listed here, and there are different action points that they want to establish by 2020. It's not yet sure if all those companies have achieved this, but this was the general goal. Where the Circular Fashion System Commitment comes from is the Copenhagen Fashion Summit from 2017, which is a global fashion agenda called on the fashion industry to take action. And there are 4 different action points. The first one is implementing design strategies for cyclability, which means that a brand or a retailer has a design strategy for cyclability by 2020, which then enables reusing and upcycling and recycling of garments. So what that could be, for example, is what brands have are those take back bins, where they take back old clothes from their customers and might give them a voucher or coupon or something similar. And then they use that thrown away or taken back fashion to then reuse or recycle. Action point number 2 is the increase of the volume used of used garments collected. This means that the brand or the retailer has a program in place for the collection and processing of used garments by 2020. That is also linked to action point number 1. Action point number 3 is the increase of resale of used garments. So that is something that some companies have already publicly announced, that they are using or exchanged used garments in second-hand marketplaces by 2020. For example, Zalando is a big platform, and they also have now products or second-hand clothes they take from the customers and are reselling. Action point number 4 is increasing the use of recycled textile fibers, which is kind of self-explanatory, is where a brand or a retailer uses recycled textile fibers in their collection range by 2020. So they might have a green collection or a fashion conscious collection, something similar, but they have all their different names. And yeah. So then, as I mentioned before, we have cradle to cradle. And that is a term that is used in the life cycle assessment of a product. And the counterpart for that would be cradle to grave. And cradle to grave would then be the linear economy that I showed previously. Another name for cradle to cradle is 2cc2, C2C, cradle to cradle with like the number in it, or regenerative design inspired by nature. So what that is basically what I showed in the picture before. It's from cradle, so the birth of a product, of one generation to the birth of the next generation. So the product that is birthed, produced at one step will then kind of be repurposed in another product. So that is the next generation of that product. And what Cradle to Cradle does is that it suggests that the industry must protect and enrich ecosystems and nature's biological metabolisms while maintaining a safe, productive technical metabolism for the high quality use and circulation of biological and technical nutrients. What biological and technical nutrients are, I will explain in the next few slides. But they have ingredients that can biodegrade naturally and restore the soil. Technical nutrients are ingredients that can be fully recycled into high quality materials for subsequent product generations. So that is the birth of the next generation. And where Cradle to Cradle comes from is that it is a certified products program that is a registered trademark also from McDonough Braungart Design Chemistry, and it first began as a proprietary system and was later turned into an independent nonprofit that is called the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute, and they based Cradle to Cradle on a system of the life cycle development that was initiated by William McDonough and Michael Braungart and the Environmental Protection Encouragement Agency from Hamburg. And Cradle to Cradle, you might have already seen in different companies or on different products from different companies and brands. And also organizations and governments have implemented those standards around the world, mostly in the EU, China, and also the United States, because those are some of the biggest markets globally. The typical apparel life cycle, of course, is the cradle to cradle. So what you can see here is the material, the production of the, let's say, t-shirt again, then the retail, usage, and disposal. And fast fashion increased the number of seasons from traditional 2. So typically we would have 2 seasons, what we see on the catwalks, on different fashion weeks. So that would be spring or summer and autumn and winter. But that is increased to 50 seasons a year, so that you can see already that it's oversupply of fashion. Textiles, and almost all textiles are reusable, although almost all textiles and garments are reusable or recyclable. The majority of that, so around 85% of that, ends up in landfills. So that is what is called cradle to grave. They are not being repurposed, recycled, or upcycled. And around 460 billion worth of clothes are being wasted around the globe per year. So you can already imagine how much that affects the environment. And also you might think, like, where does this waste or the disposed clothes go to? So here we have the cradle to cradle process and the technical and the biological cycle, with the biological nutrients and the technical nutrients. The biological nutrients, as I already introduced earlier, are the organic materials that once used can be disposed of in any natural environment and decompose naturally into the soil. And technical nutrients are non-toxic, non-harmful synthetic materials that have no negative effects on the natural environment. So everything that is used in the production of a product can be reused and disassembled and also put into the soil to kind of create biological nutrients that then let the plants grow, and then the raw materials of those plants go back to the production for the next generation of the product. And that is what cradle to cradle is about. Yeah, here you can see the biological nutrient cycle again, the growth, cultivation, yarn fabric production, garment production, then the purchase, then the take-back bins, the fibers being broken down, then turned into mulch or compost, and then the cycle starts all over again. Then we have the technical nutrient cycle, which is here the production, the purchase of the clothes, then them wearing, then being deposited also in the take-back bins, then separated and broken down into the pieces, and then turned into raw materials again, or being recycled, upcycled, whatever. There are also different assessment categories. So we have material health, material utilization. They all ensure that the products are made using chemicals that are safe for the environment and don't harm it any further. Material reutilization eliminates the concept of waste, so kind of self-explanatory. Then renewable energy. What that does is that it ensures that the products are manufactured using converted energy so that greenhouse gases are reduced or even eliminated if possible. Then water stewardship is that there is not a lot of water being used, and also that their chemicals that are being used don't end up in the water but are filtered and don't harm the environment any further. Then also social fairness is another very important point. That is similar to fair trade in that aspect, and it is guaranteed that the business operations honor all the people and treat them fairly, that there is no forced labor, no child labor, and all of that. So next we have the biosynthetics and the different fabrics. What biosynthetics are is that it's fibers containing polymers made from renewable sources, either wholly or partly. In 2005, the biosynthetic fibers had around a value of $77 billion, but by 2020, it is estimated that they reached $250 billion, and by 2030, 1/3 of all the chemicals and materials will be sourced from biological ingredients. So if the number of $250 billion in 2020 is reached, is not yet sure. That is still being audited and assessed. So I can't really say if that is confirmed yet, but that was the estimation. And one have to check in the future if there's any reports on that matter. And in the recent years, there have been many innovations in that development of the biosynthetics. And there are many innovations that, for example, are rose petal silk, soy cashmere, apple leather, cactus leather, sea cell, also like seaweed, piñatex made from pineapple fibers, spider silk, or escafe, which is fabric made from coffee. And the first generation that is currently commercially available is biopolymers from renewable sugar, starches, and lipids that are also included in feedstocks such as corn, sugarcane, beets, plants, or oils that you can see. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but here in that gray circle, the first generation is crops. And that something that is still being under development and is not yet commercially available to be sold or to be purchased rather, are the second and the third generations, so the waste and the non-food resources. The second generation is biomass, so that is everything that occurs in agriculture and forestry, and the third generation is then algae, fungi, and bacteria. So for the third generations, for example, the sea cell fabric from seaweed could be an example for that. And what is predicted for the future of biosynthetics is, one challenge is that these technologies are a bit harder to be scaled up, but it would be very, let's say, beneficial if that would happen, as they can replace environmentally damaging fabrics on the market. And decrease the amount of, let's say, polyesters, polyurethanes, and all those fabrics. However, it's clear that investments are very obvious in this area. For example, we have the loungewear brand Pangaea, which has a partnership with material science company Kintra, and they are currently developing a bio-based alternative to polyester that is 100% biodegradable, which of course would be a very, very good thing to happen for this industry, because lots of products are nowadays made with polyester. So if they could replace that, and if they were even biodegradable, that would be very, very beneficial to the environment, and also to kind of prevent climate change in some way from happening. Then furthermore, something else that is estimated to happen, or is expected to happen actually, is that biosynthetics will continue to gain more momentum through the support of major apparel industry initiatives. So we have, for example, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, which created the Higg Index. Then we have the Textile Exchange, which is an NGO that drives environmentally responsible practices in the value chain. And they also do a lot of advertisement and also webinars on these topics. So you can see that this is getting more and more important, and there will be more and more innovations in the future for biosynthetics and more environmentally fabrics in the end. Also considering that the global demand for textiles is expected to be more than double by 2050. So of course it will be very important to have biosynthetics at that point. And they are also an emerging preferred fiber, becoming more important for different sectors. So it's not just for clothing, but also for footwear and household brands and retailers, because they are using renewable resources, and also their potential to mitigate the climate change, other than petroleum-based counterparts. And they also have the potential to produce fewer greenhouse gases over their life cycles than, as I said, the petroleum-based counterparts. Here we have some examples. So we have, for example, from knitting industry, KD New York, we have vegetable cashmere made from soy. Then we have the Piñana bag made from Piñatex, so pineapple fabrics or pineapple fiber. Then we have also the a shoe made from Adidas. The fabric here is called Biosteel, which is spider silk. And on the left corner, we have cactus leather from Deserto, which used the leather made from the cactus fiber as kind of a vegan alternative for leather. Then we have Escafé, which is then fabric made from coffee. Or also from Ashoka, Paris, we have apple leather made from the compost, or like the waste of the apples, which is also, of course, very, very good innovation to kind of reduce food waste as well. Next topic is the supply chain laws and the Gruner Club, which is the green button from Germany. In general, what supply chain laws are is that they are laws on corporate due diligence in supply chains, where companies have to ensure that they are complying with human rights throughout the supply chain. Especially now, because, for example, the whole COVID situation showed the effect that COVID had, or any kind of crisis has, on the fashion industry. Many garment workers lost their jobs and weren't treated fairly, are still waiting for their payments, might never receive it. So the supply chain laws kind of aim to prevent that from happening. They also include environmental protection insofar that they are seeing if something that is used in the production is harmful for the health and the environmental hazards, is harmful for the health and environmental effect on the humans. So if there's any mercury, for example, that could harm the workers, this would also be covered by the supply chain law. And also companies must set up complaint facilities and do reports on their activities so that it's all audited and assessed in the end. Then we have different supply chain laws from France and the UK currently. Australia is still working on it since 2018, but might finalize them within this year, but that is not yet sure. So in the United Kingdom, we have the UK Modern Slavery Act. In France, we have the duty of vigilance law, and they all establish mechanisms to prevent human rights violations, ensure safety and environmental impacts throughout their chain of production. Also ensure that slavery and human trafficking are absent from the business and supply chain. If not, they would have to declare that no steps have been taken. In Australia, we have another Modern Slavery Act, which is similar to the UK Modern Slavery Act when it comes to the name and also the meaning. It is basically the same. It is not yet enforced, however, because it is currently subject to parliamentary review. Even in Germany, we started way back in 2016 and was just now finalized in March of this year, in early March. So you can see how long that takes for all of the whole government to kind of come to one solution. How the supply chain and supply chain law in Germany came together was that the federal government of Germany committed in its 2018 coalition agreement to comply with the corporate due diligence obligation by law. Given that the majority of large companies voluntarily initiate corresponding processes by 2020, which was not the case, only like a third of all companies in Germany with a certain amount of workers did this. So that is why the government of Germany said, okay, we have to do something against this and create this supply chain law. Then the coalition agreement itself goes back to the National Action Plan, which is called NAP Plan on Business and Human Rights, which is based on the UN Guiding Principles of Business and Human Rights of 2011. So kind of like the history and the inspiration from all of this is way back in 2011. So that is already 10 years ago, and you can see how long it took to get to some kind of solution. The official entry into force will be the 1st of January in 2023. And first will apply to companies with 3,000 employees and later for companies with 1,000 employees, so that also the more smaller companies are affected and can't kind of run away from their responsibilities in that matter. Then we have the Gruner Club, which is also kind of a consequence from the supply chain law. It's a certification from the government or a label from the government and was introduced for the first time in September 2018, but then developed and went into entered into force on the 9th of September 2019. So almost 2 years ago. It was developed by the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development in collaboration with the German Society for International Cooperation. And on the right, you can see the Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development called Gerd Müller. He is kind of like the face for the Gruner Knopf, the green button, because he is really behind it, standing behind it, and trying everything like his best to kind of get this through. And currently there are 46 demanding social and environmental standards that have to be met. And they claim to be trustworthy and a more objective label that assesses the companies on a more objective level, even though it's a government level. So there are no favors being done for German companies. They all are treated on the same basis. And currently what the green button does, it audits several production stages, however, not the first step. So the material and fiber use are still currently under development, and here they kind of check the compliance with social standards, and which is a major challenge. So this could include child and forced labor, longer working hours than usual or allowed, wages below the minimum wage, which are of course not uncommon in the fashion industry. And another step that is under development and still being processed is the weaving and spinning step. Something that is currently still audited is the bleaching and dyeing. So that means that hazardous chemicals are sometimes used in bleaching, dyeing, and the impregnation of textiles. And that could lead to heavily polluted wastewater leaks into the drinking water or also the groundwater. And that could endanger the health of the workers and the residents. So this is a step that the Green Button is already assessing and certifying. So if a company is renting all of those aspects, it will be more likely to receive the Green Button. Then another production stage that is reviewed is the cutting and sewing part, because there, of course, the working conditions are often not really met. So the factories are very crowded. There is no real airflow. There is no ventilation, no daylight, barely any air to breathe. So this is something that the Green Button is also reviewing. And there are different certifications that have to be combined to kind of achieve this, because it's a meta certification, it calls itself, which means you would need one certification in the environmental area and one social standard that covers that aspects, and combined you can get the Green Button. So the Green Button doesn't just certify you once you have done this or you achieve those criteria, but you have to have, for example, fair trade, and then Ökotex, for example, and combine those, and then you would be able to get the Green Button. But more information you will be able to find on their website as well. And then we come to the end. So we have something else that is very quick and short, which is leftover fabric donations by fashion houses. I think some of you, or I'm assuming some of you have heard of this already. It was a very big topic in the industry that Burberry is donating leftover fabrics to the students. This doesn't mean that it was scrap fabric, so just very small pieces of fabric, but actually very many meters of fabric on a roll that hasn't been used from Burberry, and they even started their own campaign called the Burberry Fabric Initiative, and they partnered with the British Fashion Council, in short BFC. And what they did was that they donated the fabrics to fashion students in the UK only, however, because Burberry is a UK-based company. The British Fashion Council is also UK-based. So what they did is they only donated the fabrics that have no IP. There's nothing to identify it as Burberry fabrics, so no checks or no logos, which makes sense, of course. And the British Fashion Council will oversee the logistics. They will make sure that the fabrics go to the students that are most in need of it, in different fashion colleges throughout the UK. And this is something that would be also a good alternative for different brands all over the world, because there's so much of the leftover fabrics, like the fabric still on roll, that is not being used because it's an old collection, older garments or older fabrics that are not being used anymore. Could be 10 years ago, who knows how long they are stored. So that is a good alternative for brands to repurpose or give them a new meaning, basically. And that is, yes, the last topic that we tackled now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I know it was kind of quick, but the time was short, so I tried to be as quick and precise as possible. Yes, if you have any questions, please let me know. Everyone will be able to get this presentation as a PDF file, and that wouldn't be an issue. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Hilary.
Yes, you're welcome. So I don't see any questions. Are there?
Okay, I guess due to the limited time that if any audience or have questions, you are very welcome to contact Hilary, and she has the contact details here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you too.
All right, so I guess let's stop the webinar here. So thank you very much for everyone to attend this webinar, especially to our Hilary Suraya for the very interesting introduction about the hottest topic in this textile world, that everybody is talking about sustainability, how we can do from our side to protect the environment. And also thank you for our partner, that Intertextile virtual show, that give us the opportunity to really giving our idea about how it works in this textile world. Thank you.
Thank you. I just see actually one question from Daniel. He's asking regarding this issue, when will this rule be enforced? So I'm assuming this is about the supply chain law. In France and England, this is already enforced. For Germany, it will entry into force in early 2023. Okay, maybe should I also still show my contact information in case it's needed?
Okay, thank you everyone. So if we have further questions, please do contact Hilary, and her contact details are as follows. Okay, you can email her or give her a shout. Thank you again for this webinar, and it's our pleasure really to join this session. Okay, so let's finish the webinar, and I really wish this Indo Intertext show a huge success. I hope we can see you again next year.